What is up, my friends? Welcome to the PHLY Phillies podcast, a special podcast edition. As it is our first Phillies pregame show of the year. We're about 30 minutes away from the first pitch. Thanks so much for hanging out with us here on the PHLY Phillies podcast. And the PHLY Phillies pregame show is brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Tyler Zulli, Andrew Frazier's with us. We are going to be with you for about 4 hours now. 3 different shows, obviously. So unfortunately, you do have to kind of click off and back to another stream, which is out of our control. So I apologize about that. But we'll be with you for pregame. We'll do a in-game watch-along, and we'll have a lot of friends along the way. We'll chat. Andrew will chat with us, and then, of course, we'll chat with some of our friends throughout the PHLY family, and then we'll do a post-game show whether the Phillies win or lose this one. So we'll be with you from now until about 45 minutes after the game. So a lot of Phillies baseball talk to happen in the next 4 hours or so. What's up, everybody in the chat? Elephant in the Room, Ben Ace, INS. Appreciate everybody hanging out. I know K-Red's here as well. We'll talk to everybody in just a little bit. Before we get into the actual pregame conversation of tonight's game, let's go back and talk about yesterday's game, because we didn't have a chance to do it today because there was no pod or no VOD. So we didn't get a chance to talk about yesterday's game because it was a frustrating one. No doubt about it. It was a frustrating game for a multitude of reasons. The Phillies, who have been so good with plate discipline, the Phillies who have been so good with plate selection, chase rates have been so much better this year than they've been over the last 2 years, really didn't have an answer for Tyler McGill yesterday. McGill pretty much got what he wanted when he wanted, painted the corners. And I have to tip my cap to him. He was quite good. So it's not like, the Phillies let a guy off the hook entirely. They did in some instances. I think Kyle Schwarber struck out with runners in scoring position. JT Realmuto struck out with runners in scoring position. So they weren't without fault. But I do want to tip my cap to Tyler McGill yesterday because I thought he was good. Command was strange for him because he was like effectively wild at times, where there were certain instances where his command was faltering and he would start a count 3-0 or 3-1. And more times than not, he battled back. He walked 3 hitters, but he battled back more times than not. And he got a lot of Phillies hitters looking yesterday. And I know that the idea was to be more selective, as it's been throughout the course of the year. And it's why, as a team, the Phillies have seen like the 4th or 5th most pitches per plate appearance. And we've talked about why that is, whether it's Bryson Stott at the top of the lineup or Kyle Schwarber seeing a lot of pitches, Nick Castellanos being much more selective at the plate to begin the year. The Phillies have seen a lot of pitches this year, and that's by design. I think Kevin Long and the hitting staff and Rob Thompson heard the outside noise. Dave Dombrowski heard it, and it's by design that they're a team that has seen a lot more pitches this year per plate appearance than they did a season ago or 2 seasons ago. With that being said, I thought last night they actually looked at too many pitches. I thought they looked at too many good pitches. There was one in particular, and I know a lot of people were kind of frustrated about it, was Nick Castellanos was up 3-0 in the count. And I understand that, traditional baseball concept tells you 3-0, you've got the red light. And more times than not, you'll hear on the broadcast, do you think he's got the green light here, John, or Ben, or Rube? Tom will ask that question. More times than not, the answer is probably no. In that particular instance, I think the answer probably should have been yes. But it wasn't just that at bat. I think there were a couple of at-bats last night where the Phillies were up in the count 2-0, 3-1, and they were almost too selective, which is just nuts for me to say. It would be like telling a pitcher to throw less strikes. It's a crazy concept, but sometimes it is true, where I think they were too selective last night, and it ended up costing them, because then McGill was able to get back into counts, and then his curveball was dancing. His breaking ball was dancing. I think his off-speed stuff was really, really good yesterday. And as I said, they sat and looked at a lot of fastballs. I think they got burned over the outer edge 2 or 3 times on called third strikes. And then there was one, I forget exactly who it was, but there was one that was like belt high, and it was just like, what are you looking at? So an unfortunate, frustrating loss for the Phillies yesterday, who were only able to manage 3 hits heading into the 9th inning. They only had 1 off of McGill. They made it interesting in the 9th. JT Realmuto base hit. Max Kepler base hit. Alec Boehm drives a run in. Bryson Stott hits the 3-run home run to make it a 1-run game. The Phillies had to make Edwin Diaz come into the game, which is a good thing, because I think the Mets were desperately trying to get out of that game without Edwin Diaz pitching, much like I think Rob Thompson was desperately trying to get out of the game on Saturday without Jose Alvarado pitching. Jordan Romano had other ideas, clearly. But I think that the Mets were doing everything they could to not have Edwin Diaz in that game yesterday. And they had to go to him because the Phillies started to mount a little bit of a rally. And Bryson Stott absolutely tattooed a ball to make it 5-4. And you think there's a little bit of juice. You think there's a little bit of life, some sustainability for the Phillies in the top of the ninth. And Trey Turner's at bat was bad. And Bryce Harper's at bat might have been worse. Two guys that you entrust in the middle of the lineup, two guys that have hit the ball well over the last couple of weeks. Bryce Harper's been very, very good over the last week or so. His numbers against Edwin Diaz in his career are not good. Neither were Trey Turner's. And Edwin Diaz, but made two really, veteran-laden, high contract expectation type guys. He kind of made them look foolish. Now, listen, you're going to strike out in at bats. You're going to strike out in at bats in critical spots. Like this is one of those games where you fail 7 out of 10 times, and you're at least an all-star, let alone you might be a Hall of Famer. But last night I thought the Phillies had a spark. Bryson Stott with the second home run of the season, and those two at bats were really bad. I mean, there's no getting around it. They were really, really bad at bats. Trey Turner looked lost. Bryce Harper swung over top of a breaking ball that was over his back left foot. Never had a chance to be a strike. He goes down swinging basically with his knee on the ground, and that was how the game ends. And it's funny because Edwin Diaz's numbers this year are not particularly good. He has a high ERA, a high whip, and he's somehow recorded 5 out of 5 saves because he has a lot of outings that look like that, where he gives up a couple of runs and then settles back in. And I've seen a lot of Mets fans on Twitter, just kind of perusing the Twitter sphere over the last 24 hours, where it's basically one of those thought processes of Edwin Diaz comes into the game, he gives you a heart attack, and they win the game. Who's that sound like? A lot of times it's Jose Alvarado too. But last night I thought they had a pulse, and it was quickly squashed by two really, really bad at-bats. So, I mean, I'm not going to blame those two guys to end the game, but it was a bad offensive performance for most of the night. I mean, 27 outs, and after 24 outs, you have 3 hits. And after 21 outs, you have 2 hits. And after 18 outs, you have 1 hit. They just didn't do enough last night offensively to provide any kind of spark, which then turns the conversation to Aaron Nola, who made the start yesterday. And we've gotten to a point with Aaron Nola where there's only 2 schools of thought, and I don't think there's any middle ground. Aaron Nola's been bad this year. There is no question about it. He had gave up 4 and ended up getting tagged for 4 earned runs yesterday, over 6 1/3, and his ERA went down. His ERA went down from 6.6 to 6.4. But he's 0-5 to start the year. He had never started 0-4 in his career. He's now 0-5. We talked about fastball velocity diminishing, and that's something that I have said for a while wasn't necessarily a problem for me because of the fact that I think Aaron Nola is a pinpoint control type of guy who succeeds by getting ahead in the count. He has a good breaking ball. The knuckle curve, when it's on, dances. And I think that he was the type of guy who could theoretically survive a velocity dip because he's never thrown hard. I think in his max in his career has been about 94 on average, fastball average. He's down to like 91 this year. And so I thought that was something that he could survive. But the problem that I've found with Aaron Nola, and we talked about this last week, was his command has not been good. And he's somebody, when he misses in the zone. And when you're going to miss in the zone, you're going to tend to give up a lot of home runs. And we've seen it over his career. It's not like this is a new thing that's happened to Aaron Nola that all of a sudden he's given up home runs. So he serves up the leadoff home run to Francisco Lindor. He gives up the second inning home run to Jesse Winker. And then the home run by Juan Soto, which would have made it 5-0, gets called back. It's foul ball. Called fair on the field, overturned, called foul. So it's back to 2-0. And I thought Aaron Nola after that really buckled down and pitched pretty well through the 6th inning. So he gets a ground out, a strikeout, a ground out, a strikeout, and a strikeout to end the inning with runners on base, with the chance for the Mets to really bust things open. He gets a weak ground out from Soto, and he gets a pair of strikeouts. He gets out of the 3rd. It's still 2-0. Clean 4th, clean 5th, clean 6th. And I think on a normal night, that's probably the end of the line for Aaron Nola. And you look at that box score and you go, gave up a lot of hard contact. I think that there was a point where he had given up 6 balls of 99 miles an hour or more off the bat. gave up a lot of hard contact, gave up the 2 home runs early, danced out of danger and battled his way to a quality start. And you could have closed the book on Aaron Nola at 6 innings pitched, 2 earned runs, Phillies down 2-0. They're not giving him any run support, but he kept them in the game. And I think if you close the book after 6 innings, we're going to look back on this as one of the probably the best start of Aaron Nola's season so far. The issue is the bullpen has been so taxed over the last couple of days because of the fact that Taijuan Walker was pulled after 4 innings because of a shoulder problem. Jordan Romano was terrible on Saturday. They had to use Jose Alvarado on Saturday. Orion Kerkering gives up the home run on Sunday, and they end up going into extras, which taxes the bullpen even further. I think Rob Thompson was desperately trying to get another inning out of Aaron Nola, when in reality, he probably shouldn't have. Now, do you trust Aaron Nola at 90 pitches more than you trust the bullpen right now, more than you trust Jose Ruiz, Joe Ross, Carlos Hernandez, the type of guys that are going to get brought into a situation in a losing effort in the 6th and 7th inning? And right now, I don't trust Carlos Hernandez at all. Joe Ross has been underwhelming, but I kind of expected this to be what he was. He's a swing man. He's a innings eater. If the Phillies desperately needed a starter, he could start a game and give you probably 3 innings right now. He's not stretched out, but could probably give you 3 if needed. But the bullpen has been such a mess lately that Rob Thompson desperately needed an extra inning out of Aaron Nola, and he tries to squeeze an extra 3 outs out of him. And he gives up a couple of base hits to start the inning. They pull him. Ruiz induces the fielder's choice and then basically throws a batting practice off of a tee fastball. And Francisco Lindor crushes it. And that was the end of that game. But I think if you looked at Aaron Nola through 6 and that was it, you would have said this was a good outing. I'm not going to excuse Aaron Nola giving up the 2 runners that ended up making him have 4 earned runs on the day as opposed to 2. But I think if you were to have ended the night after 6 innings, you would have looked at this as his best outing and one that he really, really needed because he got hit around hard and was able to dance out of it. So a lot of things factored into yesterday's loss. Nola didn't pitch well in the early stages, didn't pitch well in the 7th, but I thought over the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, pitched pretty well. Bullpen was not good again last night. Offense only had 3 hits heading into the 9th. Added a little bit of a spark late in the game, but it was an insurmountable lead after being down 5-0. So if I'm placing blame last night, Nola gets a small fraction, but the offense gets the large portion of it. I understand that Nola hasn't been sharp and his stuff hasn't been nearly as good, and he's throwing less first pitch strikes than he has ever in his career, and he's falling behind more hitters than he has ever in his career. But I think last night the blame, if you're going to place blame, is the fact that they had 3 hits through 8 innings. And to me, you're not going to win games that way. You can't win games that way. So we'll wrap this conversation up on yesterday's game because we have to turn to what is actually a pregame show and talk about tonight's game. But before we do that, let's pause for just a moment and tell you about some of our friends here at PHLY. All right, let me tell you about our friends over at Game Time. Game Time is the official ticketing partner of PHLY and the PHLY Phillies podcast. Listen, I've been telling you about Game Time for a while because I've used Game Time for a multitude of events, whether it be a baseball game or a concert. You can use them for comedy events, for theater, and you're going to get the best upfront ticket pricing that you can possibly find. There are no hidden fees. All you have to do is slide a little tab, and you're going to see exactly what your fees are upfront. You don't have to worry about going through the entire checkout process, and then all of a sudden, there's these hidden fees that pop up out of nowhere. Game Time gives you the opportunity to see exactly what you're going to pay for before you go to purchase your ticket. And the best part about Game Time to me is the 3D seat indicator. Listen, you might know exactly where you want to sit at Wells Fargo Center, at Lincoln Financial Field, Citizens Bank Park, Subaru Park. But what happens if you hit the road? What happens if you do what I did last summer and go down to Baltimore for a game with my dad over Father's Day weekend? I know Camden Yards, but I don't know exactly what the seating location looks like. So I used the Game Time app to see exactly where our seats were going to be. And I was in between 2 tickets. One was a little bit more expensive than the other, but I ended up going with it because the sight lines were better. We were in the shade, and we actually had access to what their Hall of Fame level looked like. So I was willing to spend a couple extra bucks because I saw the seat and what it looked like before I purchased it. And that's the best thing about Game Time is they're going to see exactly what you're going to see before you buy the ticket. They have last-minute tickets, zone deals, easy to find and buy MLB tickets, and every kind of event in your area. So they have the lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And they have the best ticket coverage in the ticket buying process. They have you covered through the best and most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app today, create an account, and use the code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem the code PHLY for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute deals, lowest prices guaranteed. And while we're at it, let me tell you about our friends over at Bet365, our presenting sponsor. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. And 90 million users worldwide have found that out because it is the best place to go to get all of your in-game live betting. And they feature 780,000 live stream events each and every year, and it just gets better and better. One of my favorite things, though, about Bet365 is the early payout action. We've got NHL and NBA playoffs, and if you don't want to worry about a late rally, we've seen a lot of really good games in the NHL over the first round, over the first couple of days. If you don't want to worry about a late rally, think about your team going up by 3 goals. Instantly, you are paid out on your straight bets and parlay selections marked as winners. Same thing for the NBA. If your team goes up 20 points, don't worry about a comeback late in the fourth quarter. You win that one as well. And check this out. Breaking news by Bet365. New customers now get $150 back in bonus bets when you bet just $5, win or lose. So what you're going to do is sign up, use the code PHLY365, deposit just $10, and place a $5 bet to get $150 in bonus bets, whether your bet wins or loses. That bonus bet money can be used on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and so much more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. All right, welcome back to the PHLY Phillies pregame show here on PHLY. Again, presented to us by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Let's talk about the lineups for tonight's game, as the Phillies have lost 7 of their last 9 to the New York Mets, including 3 out of 4 in the NLDS last year. The Phillies lineup remains unchanged. It's going to look like this. Bryson Stott leads off for the 7th time in 8 games. It's worked for them so far. I think they're going to continue to go to it. Trey Turner will hit second. Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber will be 3 and 4. Nick Castellanos, Max Kepler will be 5 and 6. JT Realmuto at 7. Alec Boehm at 8. And Johan Rojas will hit 9th. Now, one thing with the Phillies lineup that I have been thinking about quite a bit lately is the split up between those 3 righties at the bottom of the lineup. And when you have 5 righties in your lineup, that's going to happen. Although the Phillies more times than not have 4 righties in their lineup and 5 lefties when Brandon Marsh was playing. But now that Johan Rojas is playing more and Brandon Marsh has hit the IL, you have 5 righties in your lineup more times than not. They've gone righty, 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 7, 8, and 9. And one of the things that I would consider, and I know you're kind of playing with fire here a little bit, is trying to break up those 3 righties at the bottom of the lineup. Now, it's easier said than done, because while Max Kepler hasn't had tangible success throughout the course of the year, and he's been better as of late, he's hit the ball really hard in spots, and sometimes, unfortunately, just hasn't come up with anything. So he seems comfortable in the 6th spot, whereas JT Realmuto is really struggling right now. And I think he struggled for most of the year. He's down to 220 his averages. Not a lot of pop in the bat right now. If I were Rob Thompson, the only move that I would consider making is at some point Alec Boehm is swinging a better bat as of late, and he's swinging a better bat than JT is. If I'm going to move those 2 guys around, I think I might flip-flop JT and Alec Boehm and move Boehm up to 7 and JT down to 8. But it still gives you the righty, righty, righty thing at the bottom of the lineup. So I don't necessarily know if there's a right answer to this, because of the fact that Brandon Marsh, A, is hurt, and B, even when he played, has been such a disappointment to this team that they are now 5 righties and 4 lefties, considering they thought they were going to be 5 lefties and 4 righties. And Marsh, they were able to kind of stagger righty, lefty, righty, lefty. Now they're facing a situation where they have 5 righties in the lineup, and because of the fact that you have 3 lefties in your top 4, at some point you're going to have a streak of right-handed hitters, which I don't think is a problem necessarily to begin the game. But if you bring in a power righty, or if you bring in a righty with a heavy breaking ball, heavy slider, heavy sweeper, that's where the issues arise. And as you've seen over the last couple of nights, the Phillies late in games have turned to either Cal Stevenson or Cody Clemens to pinch hit for Johan Rojas to avoid that righty, righty, righty thing. And then Cal Stevenson goes in and plays center field for the remainder of the game. And I think that's going to continue to be the Phillies' strategy for the foreseeable future, at least until either A, Brandon Marsh comes back and plays better, or the Phillies figure out what they're doing with the center field position. Because for right now, it's Johan Rojas's. for a multitude of reasons. But I think that that's kind of been their strategy, and that's what's worked for them so far, is that they go with those three righties. And in the event of a late inning right-handed reliever coming into the game, or a good righty who's still in the game in the 6th or 7th inning as the starter, that's where you'll see Cal Stevenson or Cody Clemens pinch hit for Johan Rojas. Inversely, the Mets have tinkered with things a little bit and kind of figured that would be the case with the lefty Sanchez on the mound tonight. They're going to go, their top three remains unchanged: Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, and Pete Alonso at the top. Mark Vientos will play third and hit fourth. Brett Beatty played third yesterday. Starling Marte will be the DH and hit fifth. He's in for Jesse Winker. Torrens will catch once again and hit sixth. Tyrone Taylor will play center field and bat seventh. Luis Angel Acuna will bat eighth and play second. And then Jose Azucar will be in left tonight for Brandon Nimmo. So they are going right-handed heavy against Cristopher Sanchez, and kind of figured that might be the case. Lindor, obviously the switch hitter, will hit right-handed. Alonso, Vientos, Marte, Torrens, Taylor, Acuna, and Azucar, all right-handed hitters. The only lefty in the lineup tonight for the Mets is Juan Soto, who's obviously not going to come out of the lineup. So they're going to go right-handed heavy against Cristopher Sanchez, which leads us into the starting pitching matchup for tonight's game. It's Cristopher Sanchez taking on Griffin Canning, two guys that have pitched really well to start the year. Let's start with Cristopher Sanchez, because I was just talking about those righties in the Mets lineup. Cristopher Sanchez is coming off a 12 strikeout game against the San Francisco Giants. It is his best career high strikeouts of 12. He was excellent. The changeup was dancing. Fastball command was really good. And he has just become such a complete pitcher. We have raved about Cristopher Sanchez a ton over the last couple of weeks, and rightfully so. I mean, this guy has kind of vaulted himself into almost being a Cy Young candidate. 2.96 ERA to start the year for Cristopher Sanchez. And the thing that's really jumped out to me is his strikeout rate's gone through the roof. And a 12 strikeout game will help you out. But his strikeout rate is now at a career high 30.7%. He's striking out almost 31% of the at-bats that he sees. His career high prior to that was 24.2%. So he's gone up over about 6.5%. Now, again, it's only 4 starts. That could come down. But right now, he's gone up about 6.5% from his career high. Not from last year, but from his career high. That's how good he's been over his first 4 starts. And as INS points out, I think he's going to continue to get better. I don't think he's hit his ceiling yet. He's finally learned what it means to be a true every fifth-day starter in the league. You saw that last year. He's carried it over to this year. Cristopher Sanchez has just become an elite pitcher. And I said on the show the other day, like, I'm not afraid to say it anymore. Cristopher Sanchez is an ace. And he would be an ace on a lot of teams. Like, I think about the teams that would kill for the benefit of Cristopher Sanchez. There are a lot of teams, and not just a lot of teams. There's a lot of good teams that would kill to have Cristopher Sanchez as their 1 or their 2. Like, I think about the Chicago Cubs, for example. Like, Shota Imanaga has been awesome for them this year. And I think he has emerged as a top-of-the-line starter. But the Cubs don't have anybody that throws hard. And especially don't have anybody that throws hard from the left-hand side. You know, they've used, obviously, Justin Steele has been really good. He's hurt, but a softer thrower. Jamison Tyone, same thing. They have a bunch of dudes who have pitched well, but they're not flamethrowers. Like, the Cubs are in a really good spot in the NL Central, and I think they'd kill for a Cristopher Sanchez. So it's not just like he would be an ace on a bad team anymore. He would be a legit top-of-the-line starter for good teams, and a lot of them for that matter. And not only are the strikeouts really been a really massive part of his game, he's not getting barreled. He's not getting hit hard. He's not getting barreled. He's only been barreled 3 times this year on 62 batted balls. That's a 4.8. His career high is a 4.8%. It's his career high throughout his career. I mean, he's not getting hit overly hard. Now, the one, weakness, the one like soft spot in his game has been the first inning so far. 3 of his 8 earned runs have come in the first inning in games this year. But like, he's been so good at battling in. And the changeup obviously has been a devastating pitch for Cristopher Sanchez throughout the majority of his career. But his fastball velocity getting up and his ability to spot that pitch and his ability to burn it off the outer edge to a lot of righties and then throw it in on the hands to righties, because that's all teams are doing. They're throwing right-handed hitter after right-handed hitter after right-handed hitter at Cristopher Sanchez. And I get why they're doing it, but then the changeup really comes into play. the changeup is more effective against righties than it is against lefties. So it's almost like they're hindering themselves by doing what they're supposed to do to face Cristopher Sanchez. Think about this. Cristopher Sanchez has only thrown 83 pitches to left-handed hitters all season in 4 starts. Compare that to the 290 that he's thrown to right-handed hitters. Righties, teams are just sending right-handed hitters against them. The Mets are doing it tonight. Lindor's going to hit right-handed, and they're sending 7 right-handed hitters to the plate. And then Lindor, as a switch hitter, is going to hit right-handed. So, 8 of the 9 guys tonight, and then the other one is Juan Soto, who he's lefty-proof because he's just that good of a hitter. But he has 72 at-bats against right-handed hitters and 21 against left-handed hitters. And now he's been really, really, really good against the lefties that he's faced. They only have 3 hits this year. They're hitting 143. They have a 13 OPS plus. OPS plus average is 100. They have a 13. He's allowed 0 extra base hits against left-handed hitters, But it's not like he hasn't been good against righties. Righties are hitting 263 against them, which is not awful. And the slugging's pretty manageable. The OPS is pretty manageable. Obviously, he's given up all of his extra base hits and all of his home runs against right-handed hitters, but that's going to happen when you're facing 90% right-handed hitters throughout the course of any given lineup. The Rockies threw righties at him. The Cardinals threw righties at him. The Mets are going to throw righties at him today. I forget who his other start was against, but the Mets are going to throw righties at him again today. Now, the one thing with Cristopher Sanchez, obviously, that we know is that his home and away splits have been pretty stark throughout his career. He's pitching on the road tonight at Citi Field. He's making his 10th start against the Mets, who have only hit 215 against them with a 293 on-base percentage and a sub-4 slug. He's got 41 strikeouts in those 9 starts so far. He's only given up 12 extra base hits in those 9 starts. But the home and road splits are real. He's got a 5.3 strikeout to walk ratio at home. That number's down to 2.1 on the road. Hitters are hitting almost 60 points better on the road against them than they are at home. Their OPS is over 140 points higher on the road than they are at home. His ERA is 1.5 better. You get the point. His numbers are much better at Citizens Bank Park than they have been on the road. But this is a Mets team that he's had a lot of success with over the course of his career, as those numbers have kind of laid out. And he's gotten better and better and better as his starts have gone on. I expect another good start from Cristopher Sanchez tonight. And I wouldn't expect anything else. We didn't really get a chance to talk about Griffin Canning too much today because I think that the bigger conversation was last night and Cristopher Sanchez. But I do want to address the one question that was brought up by Markel Futz in this conversation. What do you predict the rotation to be by the end of the year? I think it's going to be primarily the same. I think it's going to be a 6-man rotation, and it probably will be Wheeler, Sanchez, Luzardo, Nola, Ranger, and Painter. And then I think the better question is probably what do I expect it to be next year? Because next year I think it's going to be Wheeler, Sanchez, Nola, Luzardo, and Painter. I don't think Ranger Suarez is back. I've been saying that for a while. I think this is the last year of Ranger Suarez in a Phillies uniform. I think he's going to get paid big time elsewhere in free agency. And I don't think the Phillies are going to want to match it with the back issues and the injury history that he's had, plus the fact that they have Luzardo, who I wouldn't be shocked. I don't have any inside information. I just wouldn't be shocked if they extend Luzardo over the next couple of months or so. I don't think they're going to let him get to free agency the way he's pitched. But to me, I think it's going to go, and because of the fact that I think they're going to try to split up righty-lefty, I think they'll go Wheeler, Sanchez, Nola, Luzardo, Painter. And I think that'll be the order. All right, we're running out of time. Griffin Canning, really quickly, really good numbers this year so far. Career ERA almost 5. He's a slider, fastball, changeup guy. He's been getting hit really, really hard and getting away with it. He's in the 8th percentile of average exit velocity, the 8th percentile of hard hit percentage. He does keep the ball on the ground really effectively. I think he's going to roll over a couple double plays tonight that are going to get hit really hard right at guys. But he is, I think he's due for getting rocked because he's been getting hit hard, and his 3.43 ERA and his expected ERA are not the same number. So I think the Phillies win tonight. I do. I think that with Sanchez on the mound, and I think they're going to get after Griffin Canning, I think the Phillies win tonight. Big thank you to Andrew Frazier for producing today's show. Check on the other link. We're going to drop the other link on Twitter just in a second, but we will be live in a couple of minutes to officially start our Phillies watch along, our in-game. Again, big thank you to you for checking us out. Big thank you to Andrew Frazier for joining us. Check back in with us in just a couple of minutes for the Phillies, PHLY Phillies in-game watch along. The PHLY Phillies podcast has brought to us by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. We'll talk to you in about 2 minutes. See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.